acculturation and the meaning of acculturations and models of acculturations and acculturation of Syrian refugees will be in discussion today with you. So, acculturation and why it's important for social work. I think this is an important question. We should ask ourselves, what can the advantage of knowing about acculturation and the meaning of acculturation? I think acculturations and the process of acculturations for the social worker is important. Why? Because I think it gives like a background information about what I can expect it from groups of refugees. Who would integrate better? Who would integrate less? Okay, so acculturations give us informations about what we can expect from the refugees. Sure, we cannot say 100% this is what will happen, but what happened often, okay? Okay, why often? Because this is according to literature review, other studies, they found this. And what I found also after I did some studies with refugees. But before all of this, okay, trying to move. Okay, so this is the session outline, definition of acculturation. Acculturation factors, what factors of acculturation? What influence acculturations of migrants and forced migrants passed in literature review, okay? Then we have W.Berry acculturation model, very famous acculturation model. It's from Canada. And Seth J. Schwartz acculturation model. Then Alejandro Portes acculturation model. Then I will talk about some difficulty that hinder young Syrian refugees from adaptation to the German society. Then I will talk about the gender issue and the acculturation trajectory of Syrian refugee men and women. Okay. Okay, definition of acculturation. Acculturation is defined the process of cultural change that occur when individuals from different cultural background come into prolonged, continuous contact with each other. Another definition by W.Berry is the process of cultural and psychological change that follows intercultural contact. So it's when two groups from different cultural background, they come into contact, this contact not for short time, but for long time, there are some changes happened regarding their culture and regarding their psychological well-being. This change, we call them acculturation. So this cultural and psychological change can include different sorts of changes, such as changes that occur in behavior, social identifications, language, ways of thinking, maybe ways of dressing, many ways of, many changes happened in this. All of the changes that happened due to this contact between these two cultures, we call it acculturation. So, for sure, the acculturation has two parties. First one is the host society, like the German society, and the second part, the ethnic group, or we talk about it, or the migrant group, we talk about it, or the forced migrant, we talk about it. So two parties. But the literatures and the studies focus more about the change that happened in the side of migrants and forced migrants. Although there are changes happened in the side of the host society, but they are not clear. They need more time to appear. But sure, there are changes. So, okay, if we review the literature regarding acculturation, what factors influence acculturation of migrants and forced migrants? Passed in this literature review. So we can classify the factors in three main groups, three major groups. Some factors affected acculturation of migrants and forced migrants related to the settlement society, Germany, Canada, and other factors related to the societal context of origin countries of migrants. Factors related to where they come from, okay? And there is a third group of factors related to the demographic and personal characteristic of migrants and forced migrants. The characteristics of the migrants and forced migrants. So we will see this in more detail. An example of the factors that related to the settlement society, the integration policies of the host country. Some countries encourage migrants, forced migrants to maintain their cultural identity. Others do the opposite. They put policies to assimilate those migrant and forced migrant. So we have this example, Van Oudenhoven. He is from Netherlands. He studied the migrants of from Netherlands in three host countries. He studied them in Canada, in Australia, and in the United States. He found regarding the acculturation, only in Canada, migrants from Netherlands identify themselves as Canadian. While in US and Australia, they don't do that. They still identify themselves as Netherlands, as people from the Netherlands. So, and this is because he said the policies in Canada encourages them to maintain their cultural identity and also integrate. So the more freedom they have, migrants, the more actually they identify themselves with the host country identity. Okay, what are other examples in this group? Racism. Racism also influenced the acculturation. Discrimination, the chances that we give to migrants to integrate in labor in the job market. Also, this is influenced the acculturation. And this all things related to the host society, to the settlement societies. Okay. Okay, what are examples we find in regarding the origin countries? There's some factors related to the origin country of those migrants and forced migrants. Take an example, the language. the religion that they have. And the more, and the biggest, the more the differences between the host country and the origin country regarding the religion, regarding the culture, regarding the language, then the adaptation process become more difficult. Okay. Example about the demographic or the personal characteristics of migrants and forced migrants. It's found by Schmitz that integration is often negatively correlated with aggressiveness, impulsivity, anxiety, and positively correlated with the emotional stability, sociability, agreeableness, open-mindedness. Okay? Integration negatively related with characteristics and positively related with other characteristics. Okay? Another example related to this group is the age. Children adopt fast to the mainstream culture than their parents, for example. Older age migrants face more problem in adapting to the host culture, in learning the language and finding a job, in adapting to the traditions. Okay. So this related to the factors. Now we talk about the acculturation model of W.Berry. His model is well known and the most famous acculturation model used by many studies as basic for the methodological perspective of many studies. They all, or many of them, based in this acculturation model of W.Berry. He asked a small question. He started from this question. He said, what happens to individuals who have developed in one culture context when they attempt to live in a new culture context? What will happen to them? They lived in another culture, in a different culture, in a culture context, Syria, Iraq, Africa, and now they move to another culture context. And he asked, do they continue to behave in the same way that they learned in their home country? Or do they adopt, change? What happened? What happened here? So, he said, acculturations include not only migrants, it include also forced migrants, refugees, sojourners, native people, ethnic minority, all are confronted with the fundamental question. All they found themselves faced with this two main questions. How important is to maintain my cultural heritage and traditions? How important is it to participate in the wider society? So all of this group of people, migrants, forced migrants, sojourners, native people, ethnic minority, all of them, they have to face these two questions. How it's important to maintain my culture? How it's important to participate in the mainstream culture? He said, answering these two questions resulted with 4 acculturations responses. either they integrate, they choose the integration, and integration when they say both are important. I maintain my cultural identity and also participate in the mainstream culture, the host society culture. Or they choose separation. Only maintenance my culture is important. Or they choose assimilation. Only participation is important. Or marginalization. Neither is important. I don't want to participate to the mainstream culture. At the same time, I don't want to keep my cultural traditions. So, he said there is two distinct ways of adapting to acculturation. He said there is psychological adaptation and there is socio-cultural adaptation. The psychological adaptation refers to personal well-being and good mental health, while sociocultural adaptation refers to the individual's social competence in managing their daily life in the intercultural setting. And he said greater cultural distance between the immigrants and their hosts implies the need for greater culture shedding and culture learning. Culture shedding, he said, relinquishing elements of the person culture of origin, deleting elements of the person culture of origin. Culture learning, adopting, and internalizing elements of the host culture. According to his studies and the study actually of many researchers, they said integration is the best way for migrants when they choose integration as an acculturation strategy. This is the best for them, for their well-being. Integration, we just said, when they maintain elements of their culture and they participate in the mainstream culture. While marginalization is associated with stress, with high level of acculturation stress. And this is due to rejection of both cultures. So W.Berry and many other researchers proved this. Okay, the model of W.Berry is important, but it's not the only one in the world. There are other models. Seth Schwartz model also, and he criticized a lot the model of W.Berry. He criticized the model basically for the idea of marginalization. He said marginalization, we said it's when a migrants or a group of migrants choose this acculturation strategy basically when they don't participate in the mainstream culture and at the same time they don't keep their cultural identity or they don't maintain it. So he said this is impossible. Migrants, they have to draw on one of this acculturation. Either they maintain their cultural identity or they participate in the mainstream culture. He said marginalization, it's not possible practically. Another point, he said putting all migrants in the same group without differentiation, without noticing the differences and the differences in their circumstances, such as migration types, country of settlement, and security of their residency in the host country. Putting them all as they are the same, this is for him, this is a mistake has done by W.Berry. Also, presenting acculturation as something, acculturation strategy, the four of them, presenting them as they are choice. I can't choose integration, I can't choose assimilation, I can't choose separation. This is not the case. This is not the case according to Schwartz. He said they don't have this freedom to choose. He said, although individual can freely choose some aspect of their acculturation strategy are shaped by demographic or contextual factors, socio-political climate in the receiving society, real and perceived prejudice, discrimination, intercultural hierarchy between the receiving and sending country, also the forced laws, exclusionary policies, all of this shaped the acculturation. It's not so. It's not a choice in this regard. So therefore, acculturation process, according to him, doesn't take the same form for all immigrant groups and for all receiving society. Migration types can impact individuals. For example, the attitude toward this migrants, when we talk about asylum seekers and about low-skilled migrants, attitude of the host society is different. Host society welcome more engineers, doctors, but they don't do for the low-skilled migrants. So he introduces a new concept. He said biculturalism. So what happened is biculturalism. What he means by that? He wanted to address how acculturation process is complex, and it's not easy, and it is not a free choice. He said migrants and forced migrants, maybe they prefer integration in the public spheres, while they choose separation strategy in the private domain. Public domains, what he means, like schools, like the work, they choose to adopt to the rules. They act like German, they act like Canadian. But in their private domain, and this is what we notice, they practice their culture. Family, marriage, values of their children, culture, habits, all of it happened according to their culture. While when they get to the street, like they dress this mask, they choose to act like others, like the mainstream culture. But inside their private spheres, private domain, they do it according to their culture. He said, acculturation process or strategies changed for at least two reasons. The first reason is the technology. He said, technology gives more possibility to migrants to maintain their cultural identity through contacting their families, WhatsApp, many programs in the internet nowadays available in hand of migrants, and at the end, enable them to maintain their cultural identity. the TV satellite, other many things. The technology make it easier for them to maintain their culture. The second thing he said, the mass of immigrations. A lot of immigrants comes, so it's become easy for migrants to make ethnic enclaves inside the host society, and inside this ethnic enclaves, they maintain their identity. We don't talk about 10 or 100. We talk about hundreds of thousands nowadays. Okay, hundreds of thousands. It's easy for them to make neighborhoods, or even they meet cafes, restaurants. So all of this ways that they maintain their cultural identity. As a result, spending, if someone spent 10 years or even 20 years in a host country, that's not result automatically that he will adopt or he learn the mainstream culture, because he has technology to keep contact with the origin culture, and there is a lot of people or migrants living in the same city that he lives, in the same country that he lives in. There is another acculturation model, actually in his, for Alejandro Portes. He studied for long years the acculturation of migrants' children. He focused about migrants' children in the United States. Migrants' children. Children of migrants or migrants' children. And he mentioned three main factors influences the acculturation of those children. The first one is the human capital of their parents. If their parents have high certificates, doctors, engineers, he noticed those doctors and engineers that they come from India, from Asia, they have high human capital. Usually they choose, usually those they adopt and they acculturate in a good way inside the American society. So the human capital of their parents influence highly the acculturation of their children. He compared between migrants come from India, was IT engineers, doctors, and between those poor migrants or low-educated migrants that they come from Latin America, for example. And he noticed there is big difference between the two groups and between their children. And another factor is the social context that receive them in America. The social context allow or doesn't allow migrants to take advantage from the skills that they have from their home country. So the social context inside the receiving country is very important. And the social networks and the cohesion of the family, also an important factor in the acculturation of the migrant children. So when the family is stable, when there is no problems, there is no conflict, violence inside the family, this is also influence the migrants' children acculturation. And I encourage you to Google his name, to put his name in the YouTube, and you find very, very interesting talks to this person. So we talked about the human capital. So the human capital, all skill that they bring it with them, formal education, occupational skill, that needs in the labor market in the host country. And that's necessary for achieving desirable position in the host society, hierarchy, status, and will. And to embody this in the host society, we need the social context that allow, enable those migrants to use these skills that they have it. So take an example. If the country does not accept the certificates that they have it from their home country, take an example, if the skills that they have it, it's not accepted or welcomed in the host country. Now we have, in a minute, we will talk about Syrians specifically inside Germany. And this differences between Syria and Germany, professions, it's an experience transfer between generations inside Syria. While here in Germany, you need to prove this in certificate. You need professional training. So the skills are not important, or they are not accepted so much in the host country. Okay. Social network, including the networks inside the ethnicity and the family cohesion. Okay. Actually, I did a study and I published the result of it in the Journal of Interpersonal Violence. It's about the asylum procedure in Germany, desperation and uncertainty as risk factors for violence among young adult asylum seekers in collective accommodations. So in this study, I found this problem that face younger adult refugees when they want to adopt to the German cultural mainstream. We will talk about some of them. One problem is the forced return. Forced return. Migrants and forced migrants, they have fear of returning back to the country that they fled from. So this uncertainty, because of the kind of the residency that they give them, the residency is temporary always. So this is create difficulty for them to learn the language, to find a job, because they don't know whether they will stay or they will return them to their home country. Although it's clear they will stay, most of them, they come from the safe country, but it's difficult to convince them, okay, there's no problem in this regard. So this quotation reflects this. I will read it. He said, Syrian refugees or Syrian asylum seeker, he said, I suffer from thinking about my future in this country. Too many pressures here in Germany. I'm worried if they will send us back. Now I started learning the language and maybe it needs 2 years, then I can do a profession training. He means the Ausbildung. But after that, maybe they send us back. This thinking, I suffer from it a lot. There are people who said they will send us back when the 3 years asylum residency are expired. I sit at night thinking it could happen that I learn and finish everything, then they return us. That means I lost 5 years in Germany. And before I lost 5 years because of the war. Then I will be 35 and nothing will have been achieved in my life. Yes, there are some people said to me, they will not send us back, but also some Germans told me that the Bosnian refugees have lived here 16 or 17 years. Then they returned them back. So forced return and the temporary residency that they give it to them, to the refugee, it's an obstacle to adaptation. He said, I don't know. Maybe I learn the language, maybe I do the house building, then they send us back because he is not sure about whether he will stay or they send him back. In this meaning also, he said, another asylum seeker from Syria, he said, I was given residency permit for 3 years, but they didn't let me know what would happen to me after my residency expired. I need to know so that I can make my plans. So they cannot make their plans when the residency is very short, sometimes for 6 months. Abschiebung, I don't know, Verbot, and this kind of residency. And so when it's so short, they cannot make their plans. So he said, if they will send me back to Syria, then I don't need to learn the language to adopt or integrate. As a result of this situation, I feel lost because the lack of clarity of procedure. When the procedure is clear, the adaptation is better. This is the message that I want to say. Make the procedure clear, the adaptation will go faster. Another things, because of the policy that the European Union take it, strengthening the borders to prevent migrants from coming, and other cultural things that hinder women from traveling alone. We have specific characteristic. If we look to the demographic characteristic of asylum seeker community in Germany, and this is also create an obstacle for adaptation. Most of them are young. Most of forced migrants come to Germany are young, between 18 and 35 years old. We will see. Most of them are males, not female, 65. Most of them unaccompanied. They have no family. Okay, what? We see that clear here. You see it. This is, I take it from the Bundesamt für Migration und Flüchtlinge. They issue a report every year. And this is in 2016, the report of 2016. We can see here die Asylantrage im Jahr 2016 nach Geschlecht und Altersgruppen. Von 18 bis unter 25 Jahre und danach von 25 bis unter 30 Jahre und von 30 bis unter 35 Jahre. This is the biggest three group. So you talk about those between 18 and 25, they are more than 23%. And between 25 to 30, more than 14%. So most of them, they are young. For sure, this is create chances and at the same time create challenges. Challenges for them and challenges for the whole society. Okay, for them, what can be these challenges? Before this, most of them weiblich nicht männliche. You can say, if we return to the same group, von 18 bis unter 25 Jahre. Wir haben 76% männlich und wo sind wir? Okay. Von 18 bis 25 Jahre und 24 männlich. Okay? So the absolute majority are males, not females. Okay? Look here, 80%, 76%, 70%. This is not normal. For sure, this is not normal. Okay? So the characteristic is not balanced. It's not balanced between men and okay? This is because of the asylum journey is very difficult for women to take it because there is cultural restrictions in traveling women alone in their own culture. So establishing a family for them is more difficult because most asylum applicants were filled by male applicants. That means the chances for men meeting a woman inside this community are very limited. At the same time, some of the asylum seekers don't want to have relation that means that inside their community. At the same time, the asylum seekers don't want to have a relation with a woman without being married. That means either he cannot be in a relation, which is very important for people at this age, or he get into psychological struggle of whether to maintain or to adopt or to depart from his cultural values about having a relation without being married. Actually, some social worker and psychological therapists that they work with refugees they notice this. So we will open the discussion. Some people started to send in me. Okay. Here's a social worker. She said to me, in fact, this causes confusion. They want to have a woman, but in the same way as in their country and in their culture. I also interviewed a psychological therapist, and she said to me, I think that in their culture, they are supposed to be married at the age of 27 or around this. And this creates psychological pressure on them, as some feel that they are past the age of marriage. They have no idea how to behave in Germany. They are looking for a lifelong love or lifetime partner, while many women here, maybe they don't prefer that. Another thing resulted from the cultural gap between the host country and the origin country of migrants as forced migrants. There is a problem that I call it unapplicable culture capital, because they don't know the language yet, and they don't know the laws, and also the codes of behavior inside the host country of them. They are uncertain about their behavior, and they are not confident about their behavior when they behave. And this is what the anthropologists actually told us already when they studied some tribe. They said what's right and what's fair in some cultural context maybe means the opposite in other cultural contexts. Okay, so maybe two tribes lives at the same area in the same country in America. They have different meaning to what can be fair and unfair. Okay, this unapplicability of a culture resulted from they are new, they don't know the language, they don't know the laws, and they know the codes of behavior. So resulted from this uncertainty or this social literacy. This resulted with they are not confident in their behavior, as this quotations explains. We will see. This is also from the interview that I did it with the psychologist. This is a psychological therapist. She said they make a constant effort to compensate or to keep up with the situation here, because what they have learned and the way they behave doesn't work out here. So they have to learn the culture again. Not only that, but they also have the problem of uncertainty about their reaction. They don't know if the way they behave is correct or not. They always ask what is right and in what context and time. As a result, they are in a state of total uncertainty as asylum seeker, they are trying to do things as well as possible, but at the same time, they feel that this is unaffordable. Now, this is reflected also in interviews. I did it with a Syrian asylum. He said, this country is very developed compared with the countries that we come from. Therefore, we need to be aware of these differences. Not only put the people in the camps and teach them the rules inside the camp, such as don't smoke inside the camp and keep the place clean. So far, no one has told me about the country, not the camp, the country. What's about the country? I see the situation here like this. When you are on the street, just act like the people around you. And here's the final point. I will talk about it, about the gender issue and the acculturation trajectories of Syrian refugee men and women in Germany. This men and women, actually, they are divorced and under the impact of divorce. So I publish this also in Journal of Interpersonal Violence, divorce and domestic violence among Syrian refugees in Germany. But now we talk about the acculturations, and we will see what we expect from women is different from what we expected from men regarding integration and the strategy of acculturations. Complete different strategies when we compare the men and the women. Why? So the gender power balance, if we compare it between Syria and Germany, is completely different. Women are weaker in Syria or in the origin countries of them in comparison with the situation of the women and refugee women inside the host country, mostly, not always. So refugee women freed from the social economic restriction that prevented them from having a job, studying, asking for divorce. Social restrictions, they freed from them. It's no problem if you work, no problem if you study, no problem if you ask for divorce. Also, they become familiar with the German family legislation. Take an example, no-fault divorce. They become aware about it. No-fault divorce is a principle in the Western country. That means you don't need to justify why you don't want to be in this marriage relation anymore. This is no-fault divorce, they call it. Also, Syrian refugee women become familiar with the opportunity they have as refugees in Germany. They have opportunity, such as participation in the language course for free, continuing their study at the university, starting their own business, and becoming independent in their husbands. They become aware about this. So divorce and shame, it's shameful in the culture context, but here it's not. When a woman in Syria gets divorced, people see her as something used and useless. Her friends and relatives keep away from her because she is a person who brought a shame. Here in Germany, another quotation from an interview I did, she said, here in Germany, I have opportunity. The woman here does whatever she wants. So why don't I go to the language school, open my business, and rely on myself? These are natural rights of a human being. I think it's a mistake that a woman woman's life only has to be devoted to the home and to the raising of children. So I found those women they are divorced at the same time. They have different acculturation strategies when we compare them with their men or ex-men. The acculturation strategy of the women is assimilation. Assimilations, I found them, while men, acculturation strategy is marginalization. We will talk about it. We will give an example. First, assimilation strategy towards German society by women. So a woman, she said to me, I want to stay here because I made myself here. I will stay here and continue my life. I find myself compatible with the laws here. A person has more right, his voice has a meaning, and for this reason, I cannot imagine going back to Syria. Also, we noticed this positive attitude towards the family legislation inside the host country. She said, this woman, she said, men object to laws that runs the best society in the world. She means Germany here. Laws that made this society the best society. What is the thing that was given to women and detracted from the men? Why is this disturbing if a woman has rights? So very positive attitude towards the German laws, towards the family legislation, but the case is different when we talk about their ex-men. But at the same time, do they identify themselves, women, as a German? I don't see this yet. They have marginalization strategy towards the Syrian society by the women. She said, this is reflected in some quotation, I read it to you here. Honestly, I always feel that I don't fully belong to the society. She means the Syrian society in which I live. There are many things in our society that I'm against, especially the traditions that said that a woman should be under the control of her husband. Therefore, in terms of our society, I don't feel that I belong to it. Another woman said, what is this society that I should belong to? I fled from Syria because I couldn't bear this society. Then after that, I live with these people here in the heart of Europe. The third woman said, I never belong to this society. I have no communication with my sister and my relative, even though we live in the same city. That's why I don't feel myself belong to this society that dismisses me, which wants to make me less, even if I achieve success. We saw that women feel that completely they belong to the German society, and here the men, the opposite of them, marginalization strategy towards German society by the men. This is reflected in quotation that I will read to you. He said, I always need a translator because I didn't like this language and this country and everything related to Germany. The first reason for this is my ex-wife and the life with her that was like a hell. It made me hate the moment when I came to Germany. Another one said, I have become convenient that the government has nothing to do with the human rights and it's taking our children by force. He means the Jugendamt. At the same time, they have marginalization strategy towards the Syrian society, the men, I mean. They also feel they don't belong or they don't trust fully other Syrians. They say, well, this is reflected in quotation, two quotation, I will read it to them, then we finish. She said, this war, instead of uniting us, it separated us. In Syria, I was busy with my work. I didn't deal with much with people. My work used to take up most of my time. In the time of the war, I saw things that I never expected, as if I was never living among these people. Now I'm trying to make a hole in this wall of mistrust, wall of mistrust, but I'm tired. I cannot put my hand in a hand of an Arab person and exclusively a Syrian. I have idea, but starting new work here in Germany, about starting new work here in Germany, but one hand cannot clap. I trusted two people, but instead of raising me up, they pushed me down. Another one said, my trust in the Syrians decreased by 60 to 70%. I become afraid of any person about his, I doubt his behavior and his speech. In fact, I'm filtering my relationship with the people. So here is some references about what we talked about it. And I think I leave it here and looking forward to your questions. If you wanted a clarification about what we talked about it. And yeah, thank you so much.